Story 1. You know that song by Johnny Cash where he builds a car that he stole piece by piece? I work in information technology, and through various means, usually customer throwaways, I've collected enough parts to build a decent gaming rig. Story 2. I took a premium office chair worth $1,000. When the branch was shut down because the jobs were moved overseas shortly after the COVID-19 lockdowns, they never followed up on the whereabouts of their items. Now, I have a very comfortable desk chair. Story 3. I didn't pay for trash bags during my years working at a gas station because I would just take rolls of industrial-strength trash bags. There was no way to track the loss since we would order large boxes full of rolls, so no one would ever notice if one went missing, and they weren't included in store audits. I missed them. Story 4. Not actually stealing, but waste. This was a department store, and so much stuff was getting tossed out. Sealed food with damaged labels, lightly chipped ceramics, loose socks, and electronics in damaged packaging. Basically, if anything could be sold at a discount, nobody cared enough to mark it as clearance, so it got thrown out instead. And guess who handled the disposal of trash? I ended up sorting through things and went home after closing with an entire box of useful items. Like I said, it's not stealing because everything was being processed and discarded either way, but I saved quite a bit for myself. Story 5. I didn't steal it, but I obtained a foosball table that would have been thrown out when we moved from a warehouse to a proper office space. Story 6. I work in a hospital, so we keep snacks stocked for when I need a little something. These include Jell-O, pudding, protein shakes, cheese, cereal, oatmeal, and juice. Story 7. Helped set up a brand new surgery department in a new hospital. Acquired several pairs of high-quality German surgical steel hemostat clamps and distributed them to my friends for use. Story 8. Not stolen, but a beautiful ficus tree that I had for 25 years when our office moved to a new location. I donated it to the Philadelphia Zoo, where it now has a home with the small primates. I named it Mr. Tree. Story 9. Paper towels and rubber gloves. We used to be able to order products as technicians. Eventually, they put a limit on it. The paper towels were so good my mom would reuse them repeatedly. Story 10. Flight attendants often take all the mini bottles from the planes. Story 11. A 32-inch Samsung flat-panel LCD television was left behind by a vendor. My manager, who is also a friend, told me I could take it. Despite knowing it might not be appropriate, I was there in 10 minutes, walking out with the television. Story 12. I was leaving a challenging retail job as an assistant manager. Imagine all the typical frustrations that come with this type of job. I didn't need any recommendations and didn't want to return, so it didn't matter if I burned bridges. We had recently won a contest from a vendor, which awarded us with $300 gift cards for the staff. They sent a card for an employee who suddenly quit and 2 for employees who transferred to other stores. I took those with me the day I left, as I was the one who closed out the store and never looked back. Story 13. I worked as a night porter in 1999, taking care of the hotel while everyone slept at the age of 17. I was paid $8 per hour. My friends would come to the back of the restaurant, and I would fill their empty 2-liter soda bottles with tap beer. That place was frustrating. They should have given me a raise when I was assigned to night shifts and given that level of responsibility. Story 14. I borrowed a ladder and never returned it. It is very heavy and bulky, and I would like to get rid of it, but I feel guilty for keeping it for 15 years. Story 15. As it may sound, I have developed a range of transferable skills that I would not have had the resources to build on my own. Story 16. I am chasing the clock at work and take both of my breaks after my shift ends. I do this purposely because it is required by law to take breaks. Every day, I wait until my shift ends and go on a paid break. Story 17. I left a company with my integrity intact after the vice president I reported to wanted me to do something that, while perfectly legal, was also highly unethical. Story 18. I worked for a bank for 18 years and took roughly $1.8 million. It was a clever plan. I showed up every day for work and pretended to be busy. The surprising thing is that they would actually deposit the money directly into my bank account. Story 19. I never took the spoons. I just forgot to return them to the company sink after my lunch was over. Sometimes I would bring them back the next day, but most of the time they got mixed with my own spoons. I didn't care much. Story 20. I used a bucket from Petco to transport fish I was rehoming and left it at my local fish store. I returned a week later to retrieve it, and an employee was upset because it was useful. The bucket is clear, 1 gallon, with marks for different amounts of water. Story 21. A wooden urn from 1912. I didn't steal it. I returned it just with a bunch of white ash inside. I worked at a historical and very posh country club and hotel. The hotel has just been sold, so I managed to get away with the urn. I filled it with ash and then started to spread a rumor that Lord and Lady Ashley were cremated and placed in the urn. By this time, the historian was let go along with anyone else who knew better. Once you tell the food and beverage team, rumors spread like lightning. Eventually, the new owner's daughter came through and started pointing at things she personally wanted, and the urn was one of them. As the staff member took the urn, he felt the weight shift. When he looked inside, he turned as white as a ghost and ran into the restaurant as it was getting ready. That's when the team began sharing the rumor with the young woman and her companion. The urn disappeared for about 2 months. Eventually, it made its way back with a fancy plaque and sat in the lobby. Story 22. I didn't really steal it. A Blackmagic video mixer, a 4K curved 42-inch display, a Steelcase office chair, and a gaming computer. I did online video production, and when the pandemic hit, I received permission to set up a home office. When I left, I asked how to return all of the equipment. I wasn't going to take a truckload. They said to ship it. I inquired if I should use my corporate card. They told me to keep it. Additionally, I printed football playbooks for a 35-man team a few times each season for 13 years. Story 23. In high school, I worked at a restaurant supply company. After graduation, when I moved out of my parents' house, I had a fully stocked kitchen with blenders, copper pans, and more. Story 24. I always print my boarding passes and hotel reservations in the office printer, although they are not business-related. Story 25. I got into trouble for stealing as a child, so I do not steal. However, when a coworker quit and left a cute mug behind, I took it home a few weeks later. Story 26. I was buying a vehicle from my employer. I had made only one payment to him. 3 weeks later, I came into work and was told he had died. His wife gave me the title and allowed me to take almost everything from the shop where he and I worked. I tried to give her money, but she refused. So I walked away with about $100,000 worth of materials, equipment, and new parts. I heard his wife sold everything, his cars, house, and moved to Florida. Story 27. I used to work in a gift shop and took a Colorado hoodie that I still have almost 15 years later. It's still in good condition too. Story 28. I used to work in a high-end hotel owned by a billionaire with no budget. After a wedding buyout, my brother and I took an entire professional bar setup. A wonderful down pillow top mattress that served as a comforter, pool supplies, cases of beer, outdoor speakers, chairs, and antique furniture. That was a while back. It was a fun place to work. I made great friends and had the opportunity to work with family. The hotel was bought by a large international chain, and the fun ended, but that was after I left. It was a great experience for someone aged 18 to 25. Story 29. A Sealy Posturepedic Super Slumber King mattress and a special edition box of wine with 4 bottles, each costing $800. Story 30. A friend of mine gave away about 3/4 of a liquor store's inventory for $1 per person. Everyone who came through was charged for a shot of 99 bananas, regardless of what they purchased. The fact that I made 3 trips was completely irrelevant. He closed at 9 as scheduled and left town. 5.5 hours later, he was on a plane leaving the country. Story 31. This was over 20 years ago. It wasn't really stolen, but it was part of my personal items when I left my first office job. I guess it could be considered a gift. It was a monitor stand designed for old cathode ray tube monitors, which I used as a footrest since there were no cathode ray tube monitors in the office. I used it to support game consoles for a few years because I was too frugal to invest in a proper TV stand, although I wasn't too frugal to buy the latest game consoles. After settling down, it became my footrest again in my home office for the past 15 years. For something made of plastic, it hasn't cracked at all and barely shows anywhere. Story 32. I slowly accumulated chocolate powder bags over years of working at a coffee shop. It looked like I had a wall made of sandbags. I then threw a party where I bought an inflatable pool and filled it with an unknown number of gallons of chocolate, and we had wrestling matches while a local metal band played about 10 feet away. Story 33. A new Mac computer was delivered to my house just as the contract was ending, along with a set of basic tools. I left it in the house, and they shipped it home for me. Story 34. Like $2,500. I didn't mean to. I would get reprimanded if I took too long to deposit it. But my boss had no real way of monitoring that unless he was notified by the bank that it had been deposited. The accountant was ineffective, and the deposit had to be made in the city where the store was located for some strange reason. I was rarely near that city when the bank was open, unless I was actually at work, and I could not leave work during business hours as that would leave the store closed. So, I either had to make a 3-hour drive on one of my days off or wait until I had to be out there for some other reason. One time, after taking the deposit home, it just never came. Whoops. Story 35. I have no problem admitting this now since it happened 25 years ago and the statute of limitations has long since passed, but my best friend and I both worked at Walmart at the time on the overnight shift. He unloaded trucks and I worked in maintenance. With the teamwork that only two best friends can accomplish, we managed to steal 5 PlayStation 2 consoles one night, and we never got caught. Thanks to his unloading skills, my cart full of cleaning supplies, a giant yellow canvas bag for trash, my ability to temporarily close a section of the store to clean it, a broken camera in the automotive section, the exit door in that section which didn't have an alarm, and the large bushes behind the store, we pulled it off. Gradually, throughout the night, he would stick a console under some trash on my cart. I'd hide it in the bushes, and during my lunch break, I took all 5 of them to our friend's house. The look on his face when I knocked on his door at 3 a.m., walked him to my car and said, "Can I leave this here?" was priceless. We gave one to our friend for letting us stash them, my best friend and I kept one since we lived together, and we traded the other 3 for an eighth of meth. But karma caught up with us eventually when the console we kept got smashed during an earthquake in 2001. The stupidity of youth. Story 36. The retail store I worked at had a large box of tampons that were meant to restock the bathroom dispenser but never did. There were thousands of tampons. I would regularly fill my purse with them and didn't have to buy tampons for years. Story 37. I took a really cool pipe and some cannabis from my boss when I was 16 and working at a lunch place in the mall. He was difficult to work with, and I'm glad I did it. Story 38. About $13,000 in illegal fireworks came from my first boss's side business. There were about 50 each of mortars, Roman candles, and jumbo bottle rockets, plus a couple of wagon wheels containing 10,000 firecrackers rolled up in a big wheel, which would stretch just under a quarter mile when unrolled. It made for an eventful summer for a group of teenagers. That was his consequence for assigning me stockroom duty. Additionally, he displayed all the worst traits of a poor leader such as bigotry, racism, and misogyny. So I didn't feel guilty about taking his entire stock for the summer, even if it cost me my job for insubordination. Story 39. I've never stolen anything from work, but the coolest thing I got there was a signed CD by Slipknot. I worked at a popular music store, and the pre-orders came with a signed picture of the band. There were a few extras remaining. Story 40. All types of medical supplies are available, including items for stitches, burns, wounds, cuts, bruises, scrapes, sanitizing cloths, and gloves. I haven't purchased a toothbrush or toothpaste in years because of this place, and the same goes for combs. Story 41. Pro V1 golf balls. A lot of them. We were moving and they were giveaway stock from the golf magazine we published. A friend said I could take a box of 6 packs of 24. The trunk of my car was full. I took so many boxes. They are about $80 per dozen. Story 42. The previous company did not renew the lease on our office space, and the regional manager forgot to secure a new space on time. As a result, we had to clear out several items from the old location. Since I had a car large enough to transport everything and space to store it, I took everything home until a new office was leased. One of the items was a decent 55-inch television, but we already had a larger and nicer television at home, so it sat in my garage for a few weeks. Eventually, my mother-in-law's television stopped working, and the office television became hers. The new space that was secured came with a television, and everyone forgot about the old one. Story 43. Not technically stolen, but I worked for a very posh school, and we had a storeroom that was so full of junk that we would just open the door, throw something in, and then close it before everything fell out. During the summer holidays, I told my boss that I was going to sort it out. I cleared everything out and separated it into 2 piles. Keep and trash. Before I started, the school used network switches from Cisco but moved to HP. During my cleanup, I came across 2 Cisco boxes, still sealed. I can't remember what they contained. I think one was a redundant power supply unit, and the other was a replacement internal board. I tossed them in the trash pile but partially buried them. When I finished, I showed my boss the trash pile. He picked a couple of items out and then said I could throw the rest in the skip, which I dutifully did, but I put the Cisco boxes in my car. I thought they might be worth a couple of hundred, which would be a bonus. That night, I listed them on an online marketplace, and 10 days later, they sold for £2,335. That paid for a nice little holiday for the family. Story 44. I have created an impressive first aid kit from all the items that end up in my pockets at the end of a shift. If you visit and find yourself suddenly bleeding, I have you covered and more. Story 45. An aluminum 6x6 scaffolding tower with outriggers, measuring 30 feet in height, is in almost new condition and has wheels. The manager was on a site cleaning spree and asked me to dispose of it in a large skip. I obtained a removal permit from a senior manager, so technically, I didn't steal it. However, considering the value of such equipment, it felt like I had. Story 46. My current laptop was intended for deployment to a client. I had it new in the box in the trunk of my car before the weekend started since I didn't get to it on Friday. The company unexpectedly shut down over the weekend, and nobody ever called to ask for it back. At the time, it was an outstanding business laptop with a powerful quad-core processor, 16 gigabytes of RAM, 512 gigabytes of NVMe storage, built-in 4G, and a dedicated Radeon R7 graphics card. It has been a reliable device that helped me complete my college degree. Story 47. I believe the wire clips are one of the best items I have taken. They are incredibly useful for various purposes. I have assembled a collection that includes rulers, keyboards, mice, picture frames, cables, connectors, cutlery, plants, keychains, insect spray, hygrometers, books, batteries, pens, camera stands, neon markers, binders, tools, and USB flash drives. I take everything I can find. I have never been caught, and all my references confirm that I am reliable, loyal, and trustworthy. Story 48. An antique balance scale with weights down to 10 milligrams. My lab was replacing these with digital scales and discarding them. My ex has the scale now. Story 49. Old batteries from the fire alarm system get replaced when they are old. My boss said I could have them, so I recycled them for my kids' Power Wheels. I guess it's not really stealing then. Story 50. A few toothpicks were used for testing the cake to see if it was done. I was young and upset with myself. Knowing now that I only needed to ask for one makes me question many things in my life. I needed to speak up my whole life. Story 51. I didn't steal, but they were going to throw out all these books with CDs containing stock art. I'm a graphic designer, so these were valuable to me. Each book is worth hundreds of dollars. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.